everyone, this is Samantha Jones, a tenured transportation professional and a recognized industry voice. Thank you so much for listening in today. I'm excited to share the conversation I had during my chance to sit down with Nivola Bryant, the Chief People Officer at Premier Trailer Leasing. I hope you all enjoy it as much as I did. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for listening in to this interview. My name is Samantha Jones. For anyone who does not know me, I am a transportation industry podcast host, and I get to have the honor and privilege of stepping out of my norm today to interview the amazing Nivola Bryant, the Chief People Officer at Premier Trailer Leasing. Nivola, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, absolutely. It's not every day that I get to talk with other amazing women in our industry. And so I am super excited to have this conversation with you. And it's also a little out of my normal conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. And I have always ample questions, no matter who I'm talking to. And so I'm excited to get to chat with you some today and get some of those answered. But if you don't mind, would you just kind of introduce yourself and let me know a little bit more about your background and what it is that you do at Premier and how you came to be a part of the Premier family?
Okay. Well, a little bit about me personally. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm married. I have one adult son who is also married, and he has two kids, my wonderful grandchildren. I'm affectionately known as Nana to my 12 and 8-year-old grandkids. And my career started back in human resources way back a long time ago when they were calling it personnel departments. And so I'm telling my age a little bit. But I've been an HR practitioner for over 30 years, and I've been fortunate to lead human resources departments in several different industries, from hospitality to financial services, nonprofit, media, and all of that was before accepting this amazing position here at Premier, where I have been for 9 years in transportation.
Well, that is a very impressive background, and I love this. We're going to have to talk about this more, but I love this evolution of what was personnel departments and then HR, and now we're going to get into this, but we're starting to call roles things like chief people officers, which I think are very they allude to what we are developing now more than just this payroll focused emphasis in the HR space. But I would like to ask you were not involved in transportation or trucking or this industry prior to Premier. And so I always love to ask people who are coming into this industry from one other industry or a variety of other industries, just to learn more what that experience was like for you and what are some things that kind of immediately stood out to you when you came into this transportation industry from others.
Great question. And Samantha, from day one, I have been in a position of learning when it came to this industry. So when I first came on board, the first thing I did was I went on what I'll refer to as a listening tour. And I went on tours with regards to visiting all of our 40 plus branches, not all at the same time, of course, but over a period of time, visiting them and listening more than anything else to sort of understand and learn the nuances of the industry and what makes it thrive and why they love working in it. And so transportation is a fascinating industry. And overall, the transportation industry plays a fundamental role in sort of shaping the modern day world, influencing economic activity, social dynamics, environmental sustainability, and infrastructure development on a global scale. So that to me was absolutely fascinating. But balancing the industry's economic benefits with its environmental and social impacts is essential for promoting sustainable development and improving the quality of life for future generations. And so during the pandemic, when our employees were classified as essential workers because they were on the front lines trying to help people get trailers out, get things repaired, moving food from one part of the country to another, getting grocery stores stocked up and households moving, I started to see this industry from a different lens. And I started to understand its importance in the marketplace, which helped me to really sink in and start to align myself with how do we get the right people in place in order to help this industry continue to thrive? And I sort of made that my mission with regards to recruiting.
Yes, I love everything you just said there, because I think when people come into this industry from outside of it, or if they just take any amount of time to try to understand it, they instantly realize that somehow you subconsciously knew more about it than you thought you did, because now you're understanding why things are on the store shelves, what it looks like when some of your favorite things are on back order or out of stock or you can't access that. And so I just quite literally, I tell people when they ask about what I do in the industry I'm in, I'm like, every single thing that you can see and touch in a store, including the shelving, the floor, the beams that built that building, we're all moving on a truck, some type of equipment that got there. And so it just helps people kind of open their eyes. But then usually that takes someone having an interaction with the industry. The pandemic made that top of mind and very clear to every average consumer, because we all had, moments where we couldn't find something, or we saw the bare shelves. And then, Think a Trucker and all of these initiatives became very prominent. And it really allowed most people, I think, to better understand what we do. And that was kind of an exciting time. It was a very stressful and scary time for us, of course, but it was also exciting that we were able to bring so much awareness to the industry that we all live and breathe every day. So I think in at least some ways that it moved our industry forward, and it gave everyone a better appreciation for what it is that we do. So I do have to ask, like I kind of mentioned earlier, Chief People Officer. I love this title. I love hearing companies that they have people in this role. But I think that there's still a lot of people who would say, what is a Chief People Officer? And maybe since not every company has one, they might not understand what that role and responsibility looks like. So I would love for you to kind of explain to me, what is the role and responsibility of a Chief People Officer?
Well, Samantha, this would not be the first time that's been asked when
Yeah.
you say Chief People Officer. The first immediate response is I have to say, it's the equivalent of a CHRO, a Chief Human Resources Officer. But when
Okay.
I think about the CPO officer and that role, it plays a critical role in sort of shaping the organizational culture, in managing talent, and driving people engagement. The CPO is responsible for developing and implementing people strategies that support the organization's mission, vision, and values and goals. And while ensuring compliance with relevant regulations and industry standards, as the company grew here at Premier Travel Leasing, the CEO and the other C-suite players decided to hire. Initially, I was hired on as the vice president of human resources to sort of establish the human capital structure and formalize the HR division of the company. And as the role evolved to expand its reach sort of beyond overseeing payroll, compliance, and recruiting, my goal was to make Premier an employer of choice from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And that consisted of developing people strategies and becoming an architect of the culture. And so in 2 years, I was promoted to CPO, and I've been in that role for the last 7 years. And it's been quite remarkable to be one of the ones to help shape the organizational culture within the company. And it was under that umbrella that I was able to do that.
That's amazing. And it has clearly been working for Premier, because I was let in on a little bit of news that I wanted to share. I was told that Premier Trailer Leasing was named a top place to work by USA Today. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I am still beaming with excitement. I am
Yes.
just absolutely thrilled. But to answer your question, that is correct.
That is no small accomplishment, and it's a testament of how your people feel. And so having a Chief People Officer in a company where people obviously feel very, very heard and supported and celebrated is amazing. So I'm very happy that you guys were given that recognition, because that's why we have awards, right? It formalizes and lets people see that the work that they're doing and the cultures they're creating are being recognized and celebrated. So congratulations to you and the team at Premier.
Thank you so much. It was really, really exciting to be able to share that news at our town hall meeting just on yesterday. Absolutely amazing.
I bet that was a great crowd there for that. So I want to talk about something that you've kind of mentioned a little bit when we're talking about this, like, people culture. What does it look like when we talk about not the role of HR, not just being focused on things like payroll or hiring. And of course, that's all a necessary part of the role. But when we talk about establishing a people first culture, what does that look like inside an organization? And obviously, you guys have accomplished it, as I think your people are a testament to that, and this award is as well. But what has that process been like for you guys? And when you came on board and you started saying we want to focus more on our people and establishing this strong culture, and what are some of the benefits that you guys have seen come out of that process as well?
Well, that's a mouthful there, and it's a subject that I absolutely love talking about when you say a people first culture. A people first culture, the benefits of it is it empowers people to bring
Mm-hmm.
their genuine selves to the workplace and create an environment where people feel valued, where they feel respected, and where they feel supported. And when people are encouraged to bring their authentic selves to work, they are more likely to feel psychological
Sure.
safety. And they become confident in expressing their ideas and expressing their emotions. And we become the benefactors of their brilliance. And so, this also, Samantha, it fosters a sense of belonging, it fosters a sense of authenticity and mutual respect. And
Yeah.
so when I interview candidates, I tell them, look, I'm not looking for you to fit into this company. That's not what I'm looking for. I tell them that I want to hire people that already have the DNA of our culture as a part of their wiring. And therefore, when they're hired, they are coming to add value to what the culture is already. They're coming to add value to who we are, and they don't have to change themselves in order
Mm-hmm.
to fit in. In order to fit means to me that you're having to take away some of who you are, and we don't want that. And so when I think about a few ways that a people first culture enables individuals to sort of be their authentic selves and serve us with their gifts and talents, we encourage open and transparent communication where individuals feel comfortable sharing
Sure.
their thoughts, sharing their concerns, and feedback without judgment and without reprisal. And so this opens a dialogue which promotes honesty, it promotes vulnerability and authenticity amongst employees, allowing them to really express themselves and connect on a deeper level. And
Absolutely.
so with a people first culture, we also focus in on diversity and inclusion as well, celebrating the individual's strengths, celebrating their backgrounds, celebrating their perspectives and their uniqueness. So there's a ton more to that also around empowerment, ownership, and them making decisions and us not micromanaging. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. So
Absolutely.
so many fun things around this. Also, prioritizing their well being, making sure that their development, that they can see themselves in the workplace not only on day one, but what am I going to do? What is my
Mm,
career path? That is very
absolutely.
important to
That's
employees.
so important now more than ever too for all the younger people joining the workforce. Absolutely.
You're right. Young folks want to know because the retention, people are not coming to stay for 30 years and get a gold
Hmm.
watch anymore.
Hmm.
And so it's important that we have a path that they can clearly see if I'm going to be there 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 15, why should I stay? And so
Yeah.
we have to make it interesting. And they need to feel that they are a part of that and they're being empowered to have some control over their career and over their future with that roadmap that we have laid out for them. And so promoting empathy, promoting compassion, and mutual respect and support amongst employees. This encourages individuals to understand that empathizing with each other's experiences and challenges and emotions is important. Sometimes folks leave that out of the workplace because they say, you know what, that's a warm and fuzzy. We're here to make money. How
Mhm.
does that help us with our ROI? But the reality is a people first culture. We believe in collaboration, we believe in teamwork, we recognize the importance of prioritizing over individual competition. We don't focus on silos, we don't focus on the individual competition. There's nothing wrong with a little healthy competition, but the
Uh-huh.
reality is it's not the focal point. The focal point is how do we work together? How do we collaborate together to get to that common goal? And the other one that I'd like to lean in on a little bit more is a people first culture is often characterized by servant leadership.
Hmm.
and where leaders prioritize the well-being and the development of their team members. And
Yes.
so when I think about servant leadership, it means you need to lead by example. You need to demonstrate empathy, humility, and genuine commitment to others. And when employees see their leaders embodying these qualities, they are inspired to do the same and to serve others around them with authenticity and with compassion.
And
That
that is
is what a people first culture is all about to me.
absolutely. And that is such a top down thing as well. And so that's, I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect that you have a role in your executive group, the chief people officer, because we talk about wanting to see servant leaders and our managers and our directors, but are we in our VPs? But do we really genuinely have that culture established from a top down? Is everyone really showing that they are leaning into servant leadership? Because it's difficult if that can't really only exist in a few layers of a company and not in the others. And so, amazing work, obviously, by you and your team there. I have to go back to something you said in that. It really stood out to me. I'm sure other people probably picked up on it as well. Everything you just said sounds amazing, and it is. And nobody would sit here and say that any of those things are a bad thing. But the tendency has been, when you mentioned what's the ROI in this people first culture and what does that do for a business, I think is for people to wonder what are some of the benefits to an organization, from a more businessy standpoint, from this ROI perspective. What are some of the ways that these companies can actually benefit and see growth and see that improvement show across their revenue or their records when they are leaning into a people first culture? And I'm sure you can speak from a place of experience here. So I would just love to know, what are some of the impacts that you see on a business when that people first culture is really established and strong?
When you make people your priority, what I've learned is that happy and engaged employees are they're more proactive, they're more motivated to perform their best, they're more motivated to contribute, they're more motivated to present innovative ideas. And when employees feel valued and supported, they're more likely to go above and beyond their responsibilities, which leads to increased productivity and increase creativity. Also, higher levels of customer satisfaction. When employees are satisfied with their work, they're more likely to deliver exceptional customer service, and they're more attentive to the customer's needs, and they provide empathy with their interactions, and they're committed. They're committed to providing high quality service. And also, they are your greatest referrals.
Yeah.
We get more referrals from our employees than we do sometimes when we do something on Indeed or LinkedIn, because they're proud of where
Mhm.
they work and they feel comfortable because that psychological safety has been created. And so they don't mind sharing that. A few other nuggets around why should a company focus on making their employees a priority is brand ambassadors. They
Mhm.
become brand ambassadors for the company. Employees who are excited about their workplace, a positive work culture, and the reputation as an employee of choice, they also attract top notch talent. And when employees feel fulfilled and supported in their roles, they don't mind promoting the place of employment. And this helps the business attract and retain high performing individuals who ultimately contribute to our success. Another nugget is that employees who feel valued and respected are more likely to collaborate effectively with external stakeholders. They communicate openly, they negotiate mutual benefits and agreements, and this leads to smoother business operations and enhanced partnerships. And so, all of those things are very, very important. Being able to adapt to change, they find themselves being more resilient when it comes to facing challenges, like what we experienced when we were going through the pandemic. That was a tough time. That was a
Yes.
really, really tough time when you had employees that had families that were in transition. They were trying to figure out, what am I going to do with my kids? And so we at that time had to step in and say, how do we maneuver in this extremely uncomfortable environment to put schedules together to meet the needs of our premier family members and their families. But also at the end of the day, we have to meet the needs with these frontline employees to be in place. And so there was a lot of traveling going on, a lot of coordination. But one thing that I am convinced of is our employees, since at that time, that we truly were living the culture of care because of the accommodations that were made and all of the adjustments that were necessary. They felt safe during uncertain times. And that's a tricky space to be in as an employer when you're dealing with a global pandemic. Nobody in my lifetime, I had never been through that. So it was a new experience for a lot of different people, but we navigated those waters because there were prior experiences of trust, of commitment, and they knew that we had their backs. And so when you invest in employee satisfaction and well-being, it also reduces turnover rates and the associated costs of recruitment,
Mhm.
onboarding, and retrain and training. Retaining experienced employees, Samantha, allows the business to maintain institutional knowledge,
Yes.
continuity, and stability, leading to improved operational efficiencies and long-term success. So overall, focusing in on people not only improves employee satisfaction and retention, but it also drives business performance, innovation, customer satisfaction, and a good reputation. So by investing in the workforce, Premier has created a cycle of success with engaged and fulfilled employees who contribute to the company's growth. They contribute to the competitiveness and overall the improvement of the company at large. And during tough times, they stick with us. And you
Yes.
cannot put a value on that.
Well, Nivola, I didn't need to be sold on that idea because I was already sold on it, but I am 100% resold on this idea. When you put it that way, it's impossible to hear that and to try to discredit that. And I know that when we really think about that and we think through all of the callouts that you just made and all of the benefits, it really is impossible to refute that because we see that firsthand in these companies who have established this strong people first culture. And I think the pandemic was as difficult as it was such a testament to the companies that were really committed to their people. And it doesn't need to take a pandemic, a global pandemic, any tough situation, any low market cycle, difficult economy, or even like micro environments where I think about, you guys are in the Dallas Fort Worth space for your corporate office. And there was a time where we had a blizzard take out Dallas and it impacted a lot of people's lives and just things like that. How does your employer respond? Is it a you better be at work or so help us? Or is it what can we do to assist you and your families and give you that flexibility and still come together to support each other? So you learn so much about your employers when you're going through those hard times. And I can, attest to the company that I was in during the pandemic and I felt supported and cared for, and that we saw servant leadership from the C-suite down during that tough time, and so it goes a long ways. And not coincidentally, I was a very loud and proud advocate for that company that I was employed by, and would refer people there, and definitely was more confident servicing my external stakeholders, like you mentioned. And if we're talking about ROI, I mean, we all know we've all had experiences with someone where we said, "Man, that person was just happy to do their job. That was so impressive." And we don't unfortunately get that very much in today's environment. And sometimes we interact with people and it's not a very pleasant experience. And you're like, well, I was considering working with you. So, I mean, it's just, there's so many ways that the ROI is evident when we break that down, when you invest in your people. So thank you for going through that with us. And again, fully convinced and bought in all over again after that. I do want to talk a little bit about how I think good people want to work for good companies. And so I don't think we've talked about some of this already, but when you have this strong culture established, and how does that help you maybe attract, and you kind of mentioned this when you're interviewing people, but how does this help you attract people who that if they're maybe not trying to be committed to empowering others, showing empathy, having strong values, that they're probably just not going to fit here, because when you're in this workplace environment where you have good people who genuinely want to help and grow each other and they're committed to this culture and this vision, um, how does that culture help also make sure that when you're bringing people in, that it's very clear that they are also going to align with that and be able to contribute to the company's people first culture?
That's a great question. I think one of the first things that you have to do is be very clear to define who you are during the interview process. And so, one of the questions that I ask when I'm conducting an interview is, how much research have you done on the company?
Mm.
And tell me what your thoughts are, what your interpretation is of the culture. So, I come right out of the gate letting them know that culture is important.
Yeah.
And I leave with a certain impression during that interview process. If they say, well, I didn't have time, or if they've not done their due diligence to
Mm-hmm.
learn a little bit about who we are. Our marketing department does an amazing job at letting you know who we are, how we operate, and defining some of the things that are very important to us. And so, with that, it's pretty clear that if you just go online, click a few buttons, you can learn within about 3 minutes whether or not you want to work here.
Yes.
And so, during that interview process, we're really clear about the importance of our culture. And we ask specific questions, those behavioral interviewing questions that are built around our core values, that helps us to tease out how individuals have operated in times past. What were some past behaviors that
Right.
were on display? And we sort of unpack, how did they manage through crisis situations? How do they operate under pressure? How do they operate in the day to day? And sometimes it's with some simple responses that they give that really helps us to understand a little bit more about who they are. Another question around that, sometimes, people are people. You bring them on board, and some folks are professional interviewers. And so once you get them on board and they realize, well, I'm just going to do who I was during the interview, I had to fit who they said that they were online. And so now I've got the job and I can take my mask off. Well, that doesn't work here at our place of employment, because what we do is we make sure that we try to get them on board with clarifying our values, clarifying
Mhm.
our goals, making sure that they understand who we are, setting very clear expectations. And once we do that, you give people an opportunity to
Yes.
join the team or not. And so,
Yes.
what we do not do is compromise our culture with folks that decide that they do not want to align. They either
Absolutely.
self exit or we help them exit. That's
And
the
that's
truth.
part of protecting that culture for your current employees who are bought in and who are doing their part to be a part of that people first culture. And so that is not at all. I think people hear that and they're like, is that harsh? No, not at all. That's making sure that that's part of that empowering and making those people that you have feel safe in their environment and making sure that they know that they have peers around them who support them. So I couldn't agree more with that. I know we're getting a little long already, but I have one more question. I think there's probably going to be companies who listen to this and say, well, that sounds great, but we don't have this large corporate office where we can establish this workplace culture in this building. The pandemic accelerated remote work, and it also, even within Premier. So maybe if anyone didn't catch this earlier, but you guys have over 40 locations, I believe, throughout the country that are smaller offices and branches. And so when we talk about culture, I think a lot of people think, yeah, that's something that we could establish in a building where we're all physically together. But how do you try to maintain continuity across 40 branch locations, some remote workers, or what would that look like? And what are some things people can do to not just give up on this one cohesive culture because you have all these locations, but try to bring that continuity across those multiple locations?
Well, Samantha, I'll be honest with you. It can be a challenge when you have multiple locations, and we have 40 plus locations, but it is achievable with the right strategy and with the right approach. It is definitely achievable. And some of that, a few things that one can do is you have to make sure that you establish very clear and well defined core values that reflect the organization's mission, principles, and its identity. And then you have to communicate these values consistently across all locations, and making sure that they understand the behaviors, the decisions, and the interactions with the company, and how all of that aligns with those core values. Another opportunity is to craft a unified mission and vision statement that aligns with all locations and employees towards a common purpose and direction. One of the things that we identified during our employee survey is 95% of our employees said, we believe this company is moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that they feel that and they know that is because it's been clearly communicated. And so we have to ensure that everyone understands their individual roles on how they're going to contribute to the organization's overarching goals and objectives. So, with that, you have to set very clear expectations from everything for behavior, performance, and conduct. Everything needs to align with those values of that culture and ensure that employees across
Mm-hmm.
all locations understand these expectations and that they know that they're going to be held accountable to help to uphold them. And so what we do is we facilitate opportunities for employees from different locations to collaborate and to communicate and to build relationships with one another. So that could mean that we encourage cross-functional projects, we encourage virtual team meetings, biannual conferences,
Mm-hmm.
and we foster a sense of unity and camaraderie across the organization. Sometimes within a region, with if a team member, because at our smaller locations, where literally it could only be as many as 3 people or 4 people, if someone or 2 people go on PTO, we literally send someone from another branch to help out. And so there's this cross pollination that takes place where they're learning also. They're bringing that intel from one place to another, because if a person has only been in place for 3 years and they go somewhere to work where that is a well established branch, where someone has been there for 10 years, they're going to learn some things. They're going to learn a little bit more about the culture. So it's a beautiful opportunity to have that camaraderie across the organization. And also, we solicit feedback regularly,
Yes.
not once or twice, regularly.
Mhm.
And we want to know from our employees, what are you thinking? So we use an external survey company that conducts employee surveys. And when necessary, we have focus groups and we have one-on-one meetings to gather insights and also to sort of identify areas of improvement. With all of this wonderful stuff that I've been talking about, the reality is sometimes there are areas that need to be improved where employees are saying, I don't think we're quite doing that right. And we take the time to pause and listen and to
Yeah.
make sure that we lean into whatever those opportunities are. And finally, leadership plays a crucial role in shaping and reinforcing the organizational culture. Leaders they should embody the company's values, and they're the ones that have to demonstrate the authenticity and actively support cultural initiatives across the organization. So when we send something out, we have to lead by example. And
Mm-hmm.
they inspire employees to sort of embrace the company culture and to contribute positively to its success. So when you have all of these strategies implemented, you are creating a cohesive and an inclusive culture that transcends physical locations, enabling all employees to work and provide good experience, to provide great learning experiences,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of where they are. They all work together because we're singing from the same page in the hymn book, the same page, the same song. And so the song is the same. And wherever you go, whether you're in Nebraska, California, or Idaho, it's going to be the same.
Absolutely love all of that. And it was kind of a trip down memory lane for me because as you were talking about the vision and mission and values, I can recite for you my first employer's mission statement, vision statement, and our 6 core values because they ensured that every new employee had those memorized and could stand up in front of your class and tell the rest of your peers what those things were if you were called on to do so. And at the time, I do think it was, I think sometimes employees think, do we really need to know this stuff? But I can tell you after moving on from that company and working at smaller organizations who didn't have a formalized approach, you do feel the difference when you don't know exactly what is our mission, vision, and what do we value. And so, fast forward years in my career, and I now own a consulting company, and my small consulting company that employs just a couple of people has a clear set of core values and a vision and mission. And so I think that they really can't be overemphasized how important that is to, like you said, make sure that your people understand, what am I a part of? Where are we going? And how am I helping and contributing? And how am I aligning my attitude and my ambitions with that vision, mission, and those core values? It's pretty hard to look at a set of core values that talk about excellence or integrity or empathy, and then say, I don't want to align with that. And so making sure that you're reflective of that in a company's culture. So very well put. And I enjoyed all of those answers. I have
I
one
think it
last.
absolutely remarkable that many years ago, and you still remember.
I do.
That's
Yeah.
pretty fascinating to me. They did it right. I'm impressed. They did it
It
right.
was. I mean, it was. I heard it on every internal call, on every documentation that was sent out, company announcement. It was never something that we let kind of fall in the background. It was very present, and not coincidentally, I think we had a chief people officer at that company, and so I think that was probably a big part of that.
Mhm.
Um, I have one last question I want to ask you. It's pretty fun. I just think that this would be, coming from your perspective after talking, I would love to share some wisdom. What piece of advice would you give to a young professional who is maybe just starting their career, and they are looking for, maybe it's their first employer or one of their first big career moves, and they're looking into these companies, and they want to find the right fit for them to start their career? What's a piece of advice that you would give those people on finding a company that they think they'll be a good fit at?
Do your homework. So don't just look at the job description. Do your homework on the company.
Yes.
Find out what they're really all about. Who are the owners? What makes them tick?
Yes.
And not just what's on their website. Do your homework and lean in. And if they're willing to, go on LinkedIn. Find
Mhm.
out who some of the players are. Look on LinkedIn. Go on Glassdoor. Do your homework to find out a little bit more about the company even before you decide to apply. So I
Mhm.
think due diligence is extremely important. Now,
Yeah.
once they decide to come on board, that's another program in
Yeah.
that you have to make sure that you lean into those core values. And if any aspect of those core values do not align with who you say you are, then you have a decision to make.
Right.
And maybe that's not the place you want. But when I come on board, when I think about Premier, when I think about being committed, accountable, respectful, and empowered, I said that that's who I am. Those are part of my personal value system.
Mhm.
And so, therefore, it's easier to align. For
Mhm.
a young person, when you're coming on board to any company, the way the marketplace is operating these days is you have to be adaptable. So you have to align yourself with the company that you're proud to work for. And being adaptable is going to be a key factor in how well you will operate within that company. I tell young folks this whenever I'm going out to colleges or speaking in the community, is that when a leader is looking to promote someone, they're not looking to promote someone within the company, internally in particular, just because they have the qualifications on paper. Many times the individual is already doing a good job. And so, therefore, your work speaks for you, and people will call you out, and your name will be brought up in rooms because the work has already been done. And
Yes.
so, what a young person can do is be very intentional to do your due diligence if it's before you're coming on board. And once you're on board, make sure that those goals align with who you say that you are, those core values. And thirdly, do the work before you can expect the promotion because it will
Yes.
come.
Yes. Yeah, I love all of that. I am such a big preacher of intentionality in everything. And so I come from a sales background. I coach sales, and even in little things like that, little outreaches, what is your intention? Do you have a strong reason for having this? Is there an intentionality behind what you are doing? And I think that that's just something that we need to apply across all aspects of our life. So when they're applying, what is your intention? Do you have a reason for that? When you're interviewing, what are your intentions in that interview? When you start with that company, what do you want? How are you taking that intentionality throughout every aspect of your career progression? And then I can't say enough about the importance of those core values too. And I would say being adaptable in a business environment is crucial, but don't confuse adaptability with compromising on your personal values to fit into a workplace, because that's probably just not the workplace that you should be in either. And so when you can talk to a company like Premier and you can talk about core values and you feel that you are aligned from a personal and professional standpoint with those core values, then you're going to know that that's going to be a place and an environment that you can fit into and be a strong contributor. So thank you so much for sharing that. Nivola, it was amazing talking to you today. This was a great change of pace for me. I love this conversation. I learned a lot. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. I did also want to tell anyone, if I didn't already have a business that I was running over here, I would be interested in working for Premier Trailer Leasing after this conversation. But if anyone is interested, Premier Trailer Leasing's website has an amazing career tabs page that you can go to see what roles are open and available to be a part of their amazing culture. Nivola is also on LinkedIn. And so if you're doing your homework, like she mentioned, I'm sure she would love to hear from you in a message there on what you thought about what she shared today. And so is there anything else? Did I cover all of that? I think I got that right, Nivola. And thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation.
It was my absolute pleasure to be a part of this podcast. And thank you for the opportunity to share something that I am extremely passionate about, and that is culture and people. Those are the two things that I do best, and it works well for me. And so I'm ecstatic about your allowing me to share. And I look forward to anyone that would like to have a conversation about this subject matter. If you want to talk, hit me up on LinkedIn and we can chat about it, because I have a lot to say about it. But for those that are looking to become a part of a growing company, we would love to have you. Love to have you. PremierTrailerLeasing.com. Click on the careers tab.
Awesome. Thank you so much to everyone who listened in today. Thanks so much for listening. We hope this conversation was insightful when considering your own people-first culture. Please don't be a stranger. You can connect with myself or Nivola on LinkedIn, and please follow Premier Trailer Leasing or check out their website, where you can also find all of their current job openings on their career page.